Hi everybody, this is Cheryl Richardson and welcome to my weekly Facebook Live. I'm glad to have you here with me and I look forward to having a little conversation with you tonight about making things happen in your life. The difference between a masculine way of working and a feminine way of working. Predominantly masculine versus a balance of masculine and feminine. I'm going to talk about that in just a few minutes, but I'm going to first say hello and welcome to Teresa. You're always here, like right in the beginning. Welcome and thanks for being here. I'm glad you're here. Hi, Megan. I'm glad you're here. Hi, Susan. I'm so glad to have you here. And Joy, welcome. Welcome. Hi, Gail. Welcome. And Sarah, who's always also here a lot, and Linda. Hi, Linda from Henderson, Nevada, and Kathy, welcome. So I'm gonna let a bunch of people join. Angela and Mary and Celeste, welcome. Glad that you're here. And Brenda from Vancouver, British Columbia. Love Vancouver. Hey, Bernie, welcome. Love it. I think that's a man. I don't know if it is or not, but I like it when the men show up. Mary and Jackie and Rachel. So I wanted to talk about something that was actually prompted by a question I received earlier today. I've been doing a lot of interviews for Waking Up in Winter, a lot of publicity. And it's so interesting because now, hi Mom, my mom's here. Hi Mom. Hi Mama Zita, I call her. I'm so glad you're here. And Bradley and Frederick, look at this. The guys are on board. This is awesome. Hey, Kathy from Phoenix. Oh, good. I'm going to see you next week at Changing Hands. Yeah, I'm going to be in Phoenix next week. Monday night, I'll be at Changing Hands giving a talk. So I'll look forward to seeing you, Kathy. Be sure to come up and say hi. And hi, Lena from Portugal. Welcome. Earlier today, let me just fix this. There we go. Earlier today, I was doing an interview as part of the kind of book tour, which is so interesting because now book tours are more virtual than having to get on an airplane and fly to cities. It's a real benefit of technology to be able to do Skype interviews and Zoom and telephone interviews for podcasts and radio stations. And so I was doing an interview earlier today. I just thought of something. I want to make a note. Earlier today, and the woman who was interviewing me was asking me about, she had read the book, Waking Up in Winter, and she was asking me about the shift from being a kind of general manager of the universe, which I've written about many times, or the CEO woman in my life, somebody who makes things happen, versus someone who actually allows life to unfold before them. I'll just say it that way, simply. And she asked me about making that shift and, to just tell her a little bit about it. And it got me thinking about years ago when I was in my mid-20s. I read a lot of books by, Norman Vincent Peale, Florence Scovel Shinn, Catherine Ponder, who wrote about abundance, and Emmett Fox was a huge author that I loved. I mean, a huge sort of spiritual mentor for me. Even though he had passed on, I read a lot of his books and really loved them. Zig Ziglar, what's his name? Napoleon Hill. So a lot of those early kind of spiritual writers who talked about manifesting, creating what you want in life. Those are the books that I really loved in my early 20s and my mid-20s. And when I was in my mid-20s, I was working as an administrative assistant for this very successful entrepreneur in the Boston area. I was his Girl Friday. I was his executive assistant. I took care of his kids. He had a couple of teenage kids, and I did his grocery shopping sometime. I mean, I was like a everything sort of assistant to him. And during that time, I was reading these books, and I was reading about setting goals and visualizing. I mean, I remember reading Secrets of Success by Robert Collier, which was written in the early 1900s, where he talked about creating a treasure map way back then. Although they couldn't cut pictures out of magazines, they actually had to draw images. And so I was really into all of that stuff. And one of the things I did is I took a little yellow sticky note, little piece of paper, the little yellow sticky note pad, took a piece of paper off of it, and I wrote a couple of things that I really wanted to manifest in my life. I was kind of testing this whole idea. So I wrote down computers with word processors built in were a new thing back then, back in the old days, people. And I wrote down that because I was a writer, I really wanted to get one of these computers, word processors. And then I also wrote down travel. I wanted to just start to spread my wings and travel, and I put the word free in front of it, free travel. And I wrote down a few other things. I can't remember what they were. But I put that little yellow sticky note, I hung it in my office in my house where I lived, and every day I would look at it. Actually, I think I hung it on the bathroom mirror. Every day I would look at it. I wouldn't think about it really hard, didn't even make any plans, didn't create an action plan. It was just free travel, the computer I wanted, and a couple of other things. That was, I think it was in September that I did that exercise. It was recommended in one of the books I was reading. And that Christmas, my boss gave me for Christmas the exact computer that I had put on my yellow sticky note. And 1 week later, a good friend of mine called to say that she had won the top salesperson award at her company. She worked for a big Fortune 50 company. She had won this award as the top salesperson in her region, and she was given a trip to stay at, it was the Boca Raton Resort Hotel in Florida, in Boca Raton. And she wasn't seeing anybody at the time and asked me if I wanted to go with her. So it was a free trip to this really swanky hotel. She was in the presidential suite. I mean, it was crazy. Nothing I could have ever imagined. And I remember thinking, wow, this putting stuff in writing really works. And of course, it inspired me. And I went on to become a really, I would say, a darn good manifester. I became masterful at manifesting. I would set goals. I remember I'd get a giant piece of paper, and I would have columns, and I would set career goals and intellectual goals and relationship goals and financial goals. And I mean, you name it, the kind of goal, I would set it. And then along with the goals that I would set, I would create very specific action plans. So I would go through the lists of goals that I set, and I would really sort of distill out of each column the ones that were most important. And then I would create a plan of action, and I would take action. I mean, I just, one after the other. And I would continue to do that in my career. Everything from, when I was writing Take Time for Your Life, well, I didn't know I was writing Take Time for Your Life at the time. I was writing a book. I called it Secrets of Success. And I had a book cover. I made up a mock book cover. I put bestseller on it. And that was my first sort of writing goal, where I had a book that I was, an image that I was looking at all the time. And I would go on to do that for a lot of different things. I've written about the fact that, before I met Michael, I had created a treasure map with the man that I hoped to meet in the middle. And I had created a very specific profile of the kind of guy I wanted to meet. And, I just was really into making things happen. And I would do that all the way through the writing of my books and through my 30s and early 40s. And then around my late 40s, mid to late 40s, I was still doing a lot of what I had always done, but it wasn't working anymore. All of a sudden, I'd be setting goals and creating action plans, and I'd find myself a little less motivated to take action. Or I would really want something, and I'd be focused on it, and it just wouldn't happen. And as I got into my early 40s, it was in a lot of ways the height of my career. I think I was doing the Oprah show every other week at that time, and my books I was selling a lot of books, and I was very successful. But all of a sudden, I felt like my manifestation muscles weren't working anymore. And I wasn't able to, I felt like every time I would focus on where I wanted to go next and write it down or create a treasure map or whatever, it just wasn't happening. And I didn't understand it at the time. I remember distinctly being really frustrated. I remember speaking with one of my mentors about it, one of my coaches about it, like something's wrong, something's, I've always been the gal who makes things happen and I'm not making it happen anymore and I don't know what's wrong. And I remember one mentor did say to me, his name was Jerry, and he said, how you've always done things isn't how you're going to do things in the next stage of your life. And I was like, okay, fine, then tell me how I am going to do things in the next stage of my life so I can make the things happen that I want to happen. And he didn't have an answer for that. And as time went on, I realized that I was losing steam. I was starting to feel tired. I was not as enthusiastic about the goals that I was writing down or the images that I was holding around me. Something was missing and I didn't know what it was. And as I got into my late 40s, I began to slowly understand that my priorities were shifting. My priorities on the inside were shifting, I guess I would say. And my outside hadn't caught up yet. And by the time I got close to 50, I was really exhausted from being a woman who was operating in what I would say is a very hyper-masculine way, a very go-get-em, conquer life, work hard, accomplish, always be on the go, always have the next prize in mind. I wasn't getting the same sense of fulfillment from the things that I was accomplishing in my life. And I think a big part of that was that so much of my working hard and accomplishing was in an effort to continue to constantly feel worthy and valuable and good about myself. And now, mind you, I've done a lot of inner work and was doing a lot of inner work at that time, which is why I think things began to unravel. Sometimes life stops working for a really important reason. And it's a reason that ultimately serves us. We just don't understand it at the time. And by the time I reached 50, what I realized was the identity that I had formed up until that point in my life was really based on performance, achievement, ambition, really managing my outer world, managing the perception of others. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to feel like I was accomplishing and achieving, but it wasn't feeding me on a soul level. And that's why ultimately the strategies weren't working. They weren't born from a pure sense of passion and a place of integrity and true purpose. And so I started to devote more of my attention to my inner life. And in a lot of ways, that's what Waking Up in Winter demonstrates. It sort of demonstrates, when I go back and I look at that book and, reading it now, when I'm doing events and stuff, I'll read passages during events and I'll listen to myself and listen to where I was at the time and realize that I needed to balance this hyper-masculine way of being in the world with a more feminine approach. And I think it's what we're called to do as we move into a new stage of our life. It doesn't mean that you're not going to accomplish and you're not going to have really significant things happen, but it's more about stopping and breathing and waiting and being patient, cultivating patience. And I needed to stop and look at who I was at that time in my life, all of the success that I had created in my life, all of the manifesting that I had been able to have happen or make happen was a big distraction from the change that was going on in the inside. I was growing up. And that's what happens as we reach midlife. Hopefully, we grow up and we start to pay attention more to the inner callings that we have. And I wanted to slow down and I wanted to spend more time at home and I wanted to spend more time in nature. And I wanted to spend more time connecting with my feelings instead of my thinking mind. And both are important, by the way, but one was sort of taking precedence over the other. And so there is this sort of dismantling of the identity that had been formed through all of those years of making things happen that occurs in this journal called Waking Up in Winter, this dismantling of that old identity without knowing what the new identity will be. And that's pretty scary. It's the hero's journey, right? Where we begin to let go of or face what's no longer working. You don't even necessarily let go of it, but we begin to face the reality that certain things aren't working anymore, and that we need to be fed from the inside, not only from the outside. And that for me, I needed to begin to cultivate a sense of receptivity and trust in life, capital L, in God, in the universe, however you define that for yourself. I needed to trust in a divine plan that if I were to just take a step back and start breathing and recognize that my value wasn't tied up in what I accomplished or what I was doing, what I got done that day. I needed to stop making a career out of my to-do list, which, many of us do, and instead start being present for my life. And in doing that, I entered a pretty unsettled period, and that's what we do. I'd like to tell you, hey, you're going to just jump from this way of living to this way of living, and then everything's going to be kittens and ice cream and cotton candy and wonderful. But the truth is, that stage in between, when we begin to dismantle who we used to be and create the space for who we are now, steeped in a deeper, in a higher number of years and a deeper experience of life, that takes time, and it takes courage. And it takes trust. It takes trust in a greater plan for your life. And I see it even with the launch of this book. In the past, so much about launching a book would be going out and doing publicity and traveling all over the place and speaking and, making videos and doing 70,000 posts and all this sort of stuff. To just get the word out. And I'm certainly doing some of that, which reminds me, tomorrow I'm going to be on Dr. Oz, I should mention. I forgot to put it in the newsletter. It kind of shows you a little bit of where I'm at. I'll be on Dr. Oz tomorrow talking about self-care for a couple of segments. All of that used to be the primary focus during a book launch. And I find myself now, because I have more of a balance of the masculine and the feminine, really being drawn to deeper conversations, more intimate gatherings. It's why I'm going and, doing sort of intimate talks at different independent bookstores in my area, or if I am traveling, then I'm, visiting an independent bookstore there. And I'm looking forward more to sitting down and talking with people. I mean, I even did my last book launch. There was a gal who came up to me when I was signing books. She lives locally, a few towns over. And she said to me, I have a big book group, and I'm wondering if you'd come and talk to our book group face-to-face about your book. And I said, yes. That's something I never would have done before, because I would have been too busy doing all these other things. And it wouldn't have felt like, it wouldn't have been, high performance enough, I guess I would say. And today I find that I'm much more fed by deeper conversations with people, and people are fed by those conversations too, and that's what I want ultimately. That's why I published this book, because I wanted to let you know that you're not alone when you begin to question your life and re-examine everything, and the bravery that it takes to do that is worth it, because the life that emerges from that mystery, from that period of limbo and not knowing, is something pretty remarkable and pretty amazing. And I want that for you. I want that for you in your life. And I'm grateful to be having it more and more in mine. I'm still on the journey, God knows, and will be till the day I die. But I want to live vertically. I want to live deep. And I don't want to ride the surface. And the older you get, the more important that is, because as we come towards the end of our life, the deeper you've lived, the richer your life is, the more content you are with saying goodbye, I think. Not sure about that totally. Some of you can fill me in if that's true, some of you that are older than I am. But I know that today I'm less afraid of death because I'm more interested in really living. And that's what I want for all of you. So anyway, I just wanted to share that story with you. There's nothing wrong with goal setting. There's nothing wrong with creating action plans. I wouldn't give up any of that. It has given me a really amazing life and amazing experiences. And it taught me, I realized when I look back, the goal setting had me constantly focusing my mind on the things that really mattered. And now I'm experiencing the things that really matter. And it's just a new way of being present to that and manifesting in a different way, I guess. So with a more balance of the masculine and the feminine. All right, so there you have it, the first 20 minutes. Now I'm going to come back and take a look at your quotes and just answer your questions. And thank you. Susan says, this is my midlife story. I heard over and over, and I heard this over and over with my patients. What a gift to wake up to this. Yes. Now, Susan led the retreat with me, the last Self-Care by the Sea retreat. And she's a wonderful women's health nurse practitioner, very, very wise woman, somebody who's been invaluable to me in my life as a friend and as a mentor. And she's a pretty wise lady, and I bet you have absolutely heard those stories over and over again, Susan. All right, so if you have a question for me, I'm going to continue to look at your comments here, but if you have a question for me, put a Q in the front. Thank you for the hearts and the thumbs up. I appreciate that. It's good to know that what I'm saying resonates with you. It's good to know that. Fernando says, when is your Christmas tree coming down? Well, I'll tell you, it's going to happen. You can see it back there, can't you? Let's see. Oh, there it is. Where is it? There you go. See the tree? It's going to come down next week. We're going to Phoenix, and it'll come down next week, finally. So it won't be here the next time I see you, that's for sure. Hi, Scott in Texas. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you being here, too. Yeah, Michelle says, when you hit 70, this is even more important. I bet. Eva says, I think this is happening to me right now, but I'm in my early 30s. I've not built my career yet. I've just lived in kind of Arctic wilderness. I'm so jealous, where I will have to leave soon to rebuild my life again, which is scary. Well, I'll tell you, at this point in my life, Arctic wilderness sounds like heaven, and I understand it's scary. And yes, there's a lot of people who have been reading Waking Up in Winter who are much younger than Midlife, who have written to me to say that it really spoke to them, excuse me, because they were in some important transition phase. And I think, yeah, that, whenever we're making a big change in our life, it's scary, but there's also probably some excitement there for you too, I bet. And you want to hang on to that, and you want to get support. You want to reach out for support. I know I did. I've got great mentors, and I write about the coaches and the therapists that I did work with during the time that I was living through that period. So I think it's really important that we get support, that we don't travel this scary journey alone. You don't have to. None of us have to. I mean, look at everybody who's here tonight. Many people commenting that they can resonate with this. So we're all going through it in some way, shape, or form, and we really want to be there for each other as we do it. All right, let's see. So Rachel says, how do you begin to live a more vertical life? Well, you do things like journaling. Journaling is a way to really get to know yourself better. You don't have to write 50,000 pages, and you don't have to do it every day. But you can simply ask yourself a question, how are you feeling today? And then just write whatever occurs to you. Or what's working in your life? And write whatever occurs to you. What isn't working in your life? So journaling is a way that we just sort of turn our vision inward and begin to communicate with ourselves. Excuse me. And if you keep up with it, Rachel, you'll find that you'll automatically begin to live more deeply. Dream work is another powerful way. A few months ago, I hired a wonderful man to do some dream work with, somebody who's a Jungian analyst and a very seasoned and experienced psychotherapist or psychologist, I think, who specializes in dream work. And Rachel, I have been just blown away by what I'm learning about myself by writing down my dreams and then talking about them with someone. I used to do that years ago, and I spent several years doing dream work off and on, and I just decided to go back to it, Rachel. And I have to tell you, it's been a very powerful way to live more vertically, because our dreams provide us with unconscious material that's attempting to come to consciousness. So when you write down your dreams, and then when you speak about them with somebody, you can do this with friends in a dream group. Just don't analyze each other's dreams, because the elements in your dream are all about you. when you write your dream, even writing them down, Rachel, you could just do this. Keep track of your dreams, write them down, and then once you've written it down, give your dream a title. Two things. Give your dream a title and notice the feeling the dream left you with, and then write about that feeling. I promise you, you will automatically begin to live more vertically as a result of doing that. You'll have a deeper experience of life, without a doubt. Yeah, Doreen says, do you have a journal and find that you write the same kinds of things? Yes, absolutely. Because we're trying to work things out. And sometimes, I mean, there was one year I was writing just affirmations every day in my journal. And sometimes I was writing the same affirmations over and over and over again, in addition to some of the journaling that I was doing. If you're writing the same kinds of things over and over again, pay attention to that. Clearly, your psyche's trying to bring your attention to something that is important to you and wants to be further explored. So notice what it is and then go deeper with it in your journal. Pick out something that you keep writing about and ask yourself, if I wanted to explore this on an even deeper level, what do I have to say about that? Like, talk to yourself in that way. I do that in my journal. You can even use 2 different pens. I know Megan was on here, and Megan talks about connecting with the soul voice by using 2 different colored pens. I think it's really smart to do that. I often will communicate between the CEO woman and the artist using 2 different pens, because sometimes they're in conflict with one another, and I get them both on the same page, pun intended, by writing in my journal, but using 2 different color pens. Thank you, Maria, who says, I'm deeply touched on what I've so far read in your newest book, and it really resonates and nurtures my soul. I can't think of anything better than to hear that. That's what I hoped for in this book. Barbara wants to know if I have book groups in Western Massachusetts in the Springfield area. I don't right now, Barbara, but I am scheduled in November. Well, no, that's not far enough out. Keep track. Go to CherylRichardson.com. Make sure that you are subscribed to my weekly newsletter, because I will put links to the schedule page in there. We're adding bookstores all the time. We added a couple today. They'll be going up on the schedule page. I don't have anything. I have something in Concord, New Hampshire. I don't know how far that is from you, but I'm going to be speaking at a bookstore in Concord, Gibson's. So you'll find that on the schedule. I think it's already there, and it was posted on Facebook as well. Let's see. Do you think midlife starts in your 40s or your 50s? Laura from Dublin wants to know. I think it really depends on who you are. I think that for some people, I think for me it started in my 40s, and when I hit 50, the actual birthday, that was, there was just something about 50 where I thought, okay, there we go. Now there's a really good chance I have more years behind me than ahead of me. And so, and that was scary and uncomfortable, but I really stayed with it and explored the feelings around that, and asked myself the questions that I write about in the book. What would I regret? Who would I regret not being? That was even more important to me to look at. And it was kind of bubbling up, Laura, in my 40s. And in my late 40s, I would say, is when it felt like midlife to me. So I think it's different for all of us. I find that people, I was going to say kids I've worked with, but people in their late 20s go through a very different kind of transition where they're trying to figure out who they're going to be when they grow up. And there's a lot of pressure to conform to society's structures around, you get married, you have children, or you start a business, or you build a successful career. And I think that can feel like a midlife crisis. It's a transition point in someone's life, and a lot of the same feelings and experiences come up during that time. What's different in midlife is you're really, you're facing your mortality, which in the end is a real gift. It's actually wonderful because it makes you take your life very seriously. Let's see, what else do we have here? Yay, I'm glad some of you are going to start to journal after reading the book. That's good. Let's see. Claudia wants to know, can you spend too much time and energy engaged in your inner life or spiritual life? Yeah, I think so. I think that on cloudy days and in the winter, and when I'm grieving, I can get stuck. My friend Russ Hudson, who's the expert on the Enneagram, which is this personality typing system. Remind me to talk to you about that. I'm going to do a Facebook Live just on that because he and I are doing the retreat together in May. I'll say more about that later. But he calls it getting stuck in the fondue, the emotional fondue. And sometimes, Claudia, I do feel like if I'm feeling melancholy or if I'm grieving, there are times where I feel like I have to kind of pull myself out of the muck and get on with my life. And the last couple of days, it's been really kind of rainy and gloomy here, and I've really been missing Poupon. And I've made myself get up, go out, put on the light box, which in the wintertime for me is a real gift. And I think it's important that we I'm not saying, ultimately at the end of waking up in winter, what I say is that my inner life needs to have as much attention as my outer life. And so I generally try to balance the two. Melanie wants to know, how did you avoid becoming ill when you became so exhausted as you write about in Waking Up in Winter? I've had health issues due to being exhausted when I was in my early 50s. I had those issues, Melanie, in my late 40s. I was really exhausted. I was suffering from adrenal burnout. As I was going through perimenopause, I had really heavy bleeding, which looking back now, I think was a part of my exhaustion, the imbalance in my body. Traveling didn't have me eating well. I was coming out of the tail end of that and Waking Up in Winter. And so, thank God I saw a really good holistic physician, somebody here in the Boston area who treats the whole body, not just a search and destroy mission for what part's broken, but really helped me to boost my immune system, to support my adrenal system, to heal my adrenal system. And I think it's not uncommon as we move out of that hyper masculine, and I'm not talking men, I'm talking about masculine. Men have the same issue of, their whole life is about work hard, accomplish, push, 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 drive, 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 be the gladiator. And eventually you just burn out. If you're working too hard, you burn out, and a lot of women burn out at menopause. And so I think it's really important to support. I always say, see a great nurse practitioner, women's health nurse practitioner, a great naturopath, a great holistic physician, or a functional medicine doctor who can treat the whole body as a system. That's what's going to help the exhaustion. And we got to take stuff off our plate, because midlife is an invitation to re-engage with your life and your priorities and your needs. And that means letting some stuff go. You're going to have to do that if you want a good life. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. So, great. I'm glad that's helpful, Rachel. Just looking for some of your questions. Can writing, this is a good question. Lygia, I think it is, says, can writing things and focusing on them inwardly make them worse? Meaning, could it intensify something you're unhappy with, but trying to get through? That's also a good question I get asked with journaling. If you're writing in your journal about all the things that aren't working, aren't you giving energy there? My feeling is, or my experience, I can only speak from my experience, is that writing about the things that aren't working and trying to get underneath them to what's really going on and what needs to be healed or what kind of support you need actually helps move you forward. Very few people, including myself, go back and read their journals over and over and over again. They're usually moving on. And so I think that if you're just writing about what isn't working without exploring the deeper feelings underneath it, then I think that you run the risk of getting stuck in the fondue. So it would be really good maybe to also shift, in addition to writing, make sure that you're talking with somebody, speaking. It could be good therapy, a coach, a good friend, where you can talk about what's going on and what you might want to change as well. Okay, let's see. Joel says, you asked about the next book format. I vote go back to a book of teaching or coaching. I like the voice of the book speaking like we're family, but it got old after 2/3 of the book and I missed feeling like I was learning. So far, Joel, I would say that right now what I feel most moved to do is the journal. I'm always open to change. And I also recognize, it's not the format for everybody. It was a big risk for me to publish this book because it was such a departure. And I wanted people to look for the pieces of wisdom through my life experience that spoke to them and maybe inspired deeper questioning or deeper exploration. And I wanted to also just sort of share my own experience in the hopes that some people would see the benefit of a kind of therapy, or see the benefits of working with a coach, and maybe do something like that for themselves. So I consider myself an artist, and I first and foremost want to be, I want to really honor what I feel called to create. And at the same time, it's not going to resonate with everyone. And certainly, I think if you, I hope you're subscribed to my weekly blog. Sometimes there's teaching, there's more teaching in there. And I don't know, if I do another journal, maybe it will speak to you differently at some other point, Joel. Or if not, I have so many wonderful, wonderful colleagues who just write great, great books. And I mention some of them in my newsletters and on my Facebook pages. And I would encourage you to check those out. Absolutely. No problem with that at all. Let's see. Would I consider holding a seminar on Long Island? Yeah, I would, especially if it was near Montauk. It's beautiful there. I haven't been there in a long time. Yeah, Deborah Poupon passed away in November. Just, like cats, like animals are, they often hide their illness until it's very far along. And we discovered a big tumor in the middle of his chest. And he just went pretty quickly after that. And it's just so sad. We only had him for 10.5 years, but I'm learning there is no certainty in life, and it is a huge risk to love, but I wouldn't have it any other way. All right, let's see. One more and then we'll get going. Yes, Susan says, thank you for your support of nurse practitioners. Are you kidding me? That's about like all I recommend at this point, because I love seeing women healthcare practitioners who have a lot of experience with women and who check under the hood in their own lives too, who care about their inner lives as well. And you were certainly that person for sure. Okay. Venice says, how do you find a good life coach, especially if you live in the boonies? I kind of live in the boonies, Venice. Most really experienced coaches work by phone now, and Skype and Zoom, so you don't have to see anybody face to face. If you go to coachfederation.org, you can, they have a coach referral service there, and you can find a coach that way. If you send an email to chris@CherylRichardson.com, I am happy to send you some coaches that whose work I'm familiar with, and I recommend that you talk to a few of them to decide who might be for you. I don't get a referral fee. I always like to tell people that. It's just that I'm very familiar with their work, and you can work with them over the phone, and that'll be awesome, and you'll love it, I bet. Yes, Mary Kay, I'm actually going to be speaking at the New England Bookmobile. We're just working on the dates right now, so I will be down in the Boston area. Yeah, Alexis, thank you very much. I appreciate your condolences, and Mary Kay as well. Oh, and Shari, I'm so sorry for your loss. She lost her puppy last week. Oh, I'm just so sorry. And all I can say to you, Shari, is I promise you'll get through this. I just needed someone to say that to me. You will get through this. It's going to just be really hard, and you'll get through it. And thank God for people who have been through it, who offer their love and support and really understand. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up. I am going to give you just a little sneak preview that I'm about to post information about the next retreat that's going to be happening in York, Maine, Self-Care by the Sea. It's going to be May 18th through the 20th, and I'm going to be co-leading it with Russ Hudson, who's a very dear friend, a very wise teacher, talk about the inner life, and an expert on the Enneagram, which is a personality typing system that is extraordinary and captures the essence of who people are, and the blocks that our individual type has, and the strengths that we have that we want to express more in the world. And this particular retreat is all about the hero's journey and about times of transition and the toolboxes that both Russ and I bring to the hero's journey that you can use during your time of transition to not only make it maybe more comfortable and easier, but to make it rich and fulfilling and meaningful and ultimately very successful. So you'll be getting I'll be posting more information about that as well. And remember Dr. Oz tomorrow. And I think that's it. I just want to say thank you all so very much for being here with me. I really appreciate that, and I always appreciate it. I won't be on Facebook Live next week scheduled because I'm going to be in Phoenix, but I may just do one from the mountains somewhere. If I get a signal, I'll probably do a spontaneous one. And I'll look forward to those of you who are in the Phoenix area. I hope to see you next Monday night at Changing Hands. All right? Okay, everybody. Thanks so much. Have a great week. Bye.